All right, guys. We're going to continue on with the note sheet from yesterday. So we were not on this one here. We stopped on this one here. So again, we're trying to find the equation given from the given information. This one here, it tells us the vertex and the focus. Now the vertex is always going to be the point h comma k. Vertex is the point h comma k. No matter which equation we have, that is the vertex. Focus. The focus is going to be one of 2 points, h plus p comma k or h comma k plus p, because our plus p is going to go with whichever one changed from the vertex to the focus. And as we look at this here, vertex is the point -1, 4. Focus is the point -1, 2. All right, guys. 2.3. We're on 2.3.
No, this is all Colin's fault.
2.3.
I was going to say, I think all of them are behind on that.
So, H or K from the vertex, which one changed? K. So that means the vertex, the focus's general form is going to be H comma K plus P. Because whichever one is changing is going to be the one we're adding P to. Now that amount of change is not always going to go up. It could also go down. Because if P is a positive value, it's going to go up. If P is negative, it's going to go down. Now this tells us one way to find, or it tells us the way to find the value of P. It also tells us which equation we're using. Because our K plus P tells us that our general equation is our y equals A times x minus h squared plus K. So we still need to find the values of h, k, p, and a. H, in our case, is -1. K is 4. We do not know what the value of P is yet, but we know that K plus P should give us what? Almost.
4.
2. Because focus in the general form is H comma K plus P. K plus P's value in the focus is 2. So K plus P should equal 2. Value of K in this case is 4. So we're saying that 4 plus P equals 2. To find the value of P, we would do what? Subtract 4 from both sides. 4 minus 4 is 0. 2 minus 4 is -2. So it tells us the value of P is -2. Now the last thing we need to find is the value of A. A is equal to 1 over 4P. So we'd have 1 over 4 times -2, which would be -1/8. Questions on how we found the values of A, H, K, and P? All right, guys. So let's plug in the values of A, H, and K. Well, A is -1/8. X minus H. H is -1. Well, our negative would just be a plus K. So we're not going to write X minus -1 because our negative make a plus. So we'll just write it as X plus 1. And we get this here. Questions on this here? We ready for the next one? All right, guys, focus in. Focus up here. Now, if we look at this one here, they gave us the directrix. I think the directrix is a little bit nicer because we're not having to look at what's changing, what's staying the same. Because here, the directrix is y equals 73 over 8. In the two forms, one, the directrix is y equals k minus p, y equals a number. The other, the directrix is x equals h minus p, x equals a number. So the only one of the two that has y equals is our y equals k minus p, which does tell us or give us a way to find the value of p, but it also tells us that the general form is our y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. It gives us the equation. Vertex is still the point, h comma k. So from the vertex, we know that the value of h is, and k is 9. Now for the general form, or for our equation, we need a, h, and k. But to find a, we need to find p. And p so k minus p from the directrix is going to be 73 over 8. Now we know what k is. K is 9. So we can say 9 minus p is equal to 73 over 8. Now we just need to solve for p. So the first thing we can do is minus 9 from both sides. 9 minus 9 would be 0, telling us negative p is equal to. At this point here, we can just grab a calculator and say 73 over 8 minus 9 is 1/8. So we have negative p equals 1/8. We need to get p to be positive. There's two ways that we can do it. One of them would be to, we can divide both sides by negative 1, because negative p divided by negative 1 is positive p. And 1/8 divided by negative 1 is going to be negative 1/8. The other way we could have done this is we actually just multiply both sides by negative 1. It would get us to the same spot. Last thing we need to do is find the value of a. A is equal to 1 over 4p, so we'd have 1 over 4 times negative 1/8. Would be negative 2. Questions on how we found these A, B, A, P, H, K. Now we just got to plug it back in. A is negative 2 times x minus h, so x minus 8 squared plus k. Questions on this here? Questions on anything we've done so far? We ready for the next one? Yes. Vertex focus. Vertex is still the point, h comma k. Now, when we look from vertex to focus, did the h value change or did the k value change? H. So that means in the general form for this here, we actually have h plus p comma k, which tells us that the equation we're looking at in the general form is our x equals a times y minus k squared plus h. Now we do need to find the values of h, k, p, and a. Now the vertex tells us h and k. H is -8, k is -9. Now we still need to find the value of p, but the focus tells me that h plus p is equal to -31 over 4. Because again, we're just comparing these back to the general forms. Now h in our case is -8. So we're saying that -8 plus p should equal -31 over 4. At this point here, we can add 8 to both sides because our -8 plus 8 will cancel, telling us p is equal to -31 over 4 plus 8 is tells us p is 1/4. But in the general form, we don't need the value p, we need the value of a. Well, a is equal to 1 over 4 p. And to find a, we just replace p with its value, 1/4. Because 4 times 1/4 is 1. 1 divided by 1 is still 1. But we can also just plug that in the calculator. It will tell us what that is. Now we can plug the values in. We'll plug 1 in for a, -9 in for k, and -8 in for h. Now we won't normally just write it that way. Because since we have a multiplication of 1 in front of the parentheses, we just write the parentheses. We don't have to write that 1. It's understood. Our -9, we're just going to write that as +9. And we're not going to write it as plus -8. We're just going to say -8. So our equation for this here is x equals y plus 9 squared minus 8. Questions on this here? We're going to look at 2 more of these, and then we're going to move on to the last type. Are we ready for the next one? Now, as we look at this here, it is kind of nice that they told us that we have a directrix of x equals. So the directrix in the general form is going to be our x minus h, which also tells us that the general form for this here is our x is equal to a times y minus k squared plus h. And like all the ones we've been doing today and yesterday, we still need to find the values of h, k, p, and a. And just like we've been doing, the vertex tells us our h and k values. And what are those values? Do we have the vertex? No, it gave us what? The focus. Now, even though it gave us the focus instead of the vertex, we can still use the general forms to find what we need. Because it's nice when they give us the directrix and vertex, or focus and vertex, because vertex just tells us what the h and k are. We move on from there. Here, the general form for this focus is going to be our h plus p, comma, k. Now we know it is this mainly because the directives told us. Directives told us that we have our x equals, so it has to be our x equals equation, which means the focus, directrix, axis, symmetry all have to line up with that equation. So directrix x equals negative 65 over 8, so it lines up with our x equals h minus p, which means our focus has to line up with our h plus p comma k, because again, we're using the x equal equation. So all the other properties of it will hold true for this here. Now, the only real value that we get from focus and directrix directly is the fact that the value of k is negative 7. That's the only thing it told us outright. But what it did tell us is that h plus p, whatever the value of h is, added to our value of p, should give us negative 63 over 8. We don't know what h is yet. We don't know what p is yet. But when we add them together, we get negative 63 over 8. The directrix told me that when I take the value of h and subtract the value of p from it, we get negative 65 over 8. We have a system of equations because we have h plus p and h minus p. Now, given the directrix and focus, we're going to set these two equations up to find h or p, and whichever one we don't find first, we'll find it second. Now, the nice thing with this here, unlike most systems of equation, we had to do something to get one of the two variables to be the same and then add or subtract. There's steps involved. Here, we don't have to do any of that. We just have to add or subtract. Because if we subtract these two, h minus h is 0, yes? P minus negative p, the negative and negative make a plus, p plus p is 2p. We can solve for the value of p. If we add, h plus h is 2h. P plus negative p is, either way, we find one of them. Do we want to add or subtract? Just pick one. Doesn't matter. Add. Because if we add, we'll find the value of h first. Because h plus h is 2h. P plus negative p is 0. Negative 63 eighths plus negative 65 eighths. Negative 63 eighths plus negative 65 eighths is negative 16. Now at this point, we can go on solve h. We would divide both sides by 2. You're telling us h is negative 8. So we found h, we still need to find p, and once we find p, we can find a. Now, whichever equation we pick, it really doesn't matter. We can say h plus p or h minus p. I normally pick h plus p because we're not going to have to deal with the sign issue of h minus p. And at this point here, we can plug in the fact that h is negative 8. So negative 8 plus p equals negative 63 eighths. At this point here, we can add 8 to both sides. Negative 63 over 8 plus 8 is 1/8. And last, we have to find the value of a. A is equal to 1 over 4p. So for us here, it'd be 1 over 4 times 1/8. And if we plug that in, we get 2. Questions on how we found H, K, P, or A? Now, I'd say for this here, there are more steps, yes? A few more steps. A times y minus k, so y minus -7 would be y plus 7, plus -8 is going to be -8.
Get your hands off the tail.
All right, guys. Questions on this here? Questions on anything we've done so far? Now we're going to look at another one of these here, where we're given the focus and directrix. Now they told us the directrix is x equals 109 over 12. Since they told us the directrix is x equals, it means we're using our x equals equation. It also means that our focus is going to be our h plus p comma k, because that's just how they line up. We still need to find the values of h, k, p, and a. Now, just kind of like the last one, the only value they gave us was the value of k, which is -7. Now, if we were doing this with the other equation, our y equals a times x minus h squared plus k instead of x equals, the only thing that would really change at this point is that we would know what the value of h is instead of k. Everything else is going to be the exact same. Because our next step that we would do is put the fact that h minus p is equal to 109 over 12 over our h plus p, which we get from the focus, which is 107 over 12. And again, if we're looking at the other equation, our y equals equation, instead of it being h minus p and h plus p, it'd be k minus p and k plus p equal their respective values. And again, at this point, we can add the two equations together, because h plus h is 2h. Negative p plus p is 0. And now we'll have to add 109 and 107 twelfths together. 107 twelfths plus 109 twelfths is 18. Last but not least, in finding h, we would divide both sides by 2, telling us h is equal to 9. And then once we find the value of h, we got to find the value of p. And once we find p, we find a. h plus p should not be 109. It should be what? 107. Because 109 would be h minus p. So we have 9 plus p equals 107 over 12. This point here we would minus 9 from both sides. I believe that's 1/12. 107 over 12 minus 9 is negative 1/12. Questions? So we wouldn't plug the 9 in there yet, because that wouldn't be P's value, it would be H's if you plug 9 into that. Because we found H is 9, yes? Now to find P, we have to pick one of these two, H plus P or H minus P. I picked H plus P, because H plus P is our 107 over 2. We plugged H in as 9. We minus 9 from both sides, telling us P is negative 1 over 12. Now, yeah. Because here we have, because normally the second kind of calculation we're doing is finding A, if we're given vertex in focus or vertex in directrix. Here it's going to end up being our third step, our third equation we're solving. And the last thing we have to do is plug all this back in. So A would be negative 3 times Y minus K, so minus negative 7 would be plus 7 squared plus 9. Questions on how we found this here? Questions on any of this so far? We ready for the next piece? So we're not going to do another vertex or focus in directrix. Now this here, I did change it a little bit. I took out the whole describe the transformation when P is equal to 1 and the vertex is the point 0, 0. Not going to worry about that. But what we're wanting to do with these here is we're given the equation. We want to say what the vertex, focus, directrix, and axis of symmetry are, the four main pieces. Now the equation they gave us is y equals 1/8 times x minus 3 squared plus 2. The general form for this would be our y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Now just like what we've been doing, pretty much finding the equation, we still need to find the values of h, k, a, and p. Now the equation gives us the value of k, which is 2, and it would be positive. What's our value of h? 3. Would it be positive or negative? Positive, because x minus 3, x minus h has to be 3. It has to be positive. It would be negative if it was x plus 3. Then it would be negative 3. And our value of a is 1/8. Not focus. I wrote focus twice. Axis of symmetry. Well, in the general form, the vertex is still the point h comma k. For our y equals equation, our focus is h comma k plus p. Directrix, y is equal to k minus p. Axis of symmetry, x is equal to h. So just from the equation HKA, we can get most of our information that we need. Because vertex H comma K, well, the value of H is 3, K is 2. We have the vertex, yes? Focus is H comma K plus 3. Well, the value of H is still 3. Do we know what P is yet? No, so we can't say what K plus P is. We can find P. We'll find it in a second. Directrix, K minus P. Haven't found P yet, so we'll leave that alone. Axis of symmetry, X equals H. X equals 3. Out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spots, especially if we include the X equals, Y equals, we're only missing 2. Now to find P, P is equal to what? 1 over 4 A. So all we have to do is take whatever the value of A is and plug it in. So P is equal to 1 over 4A. So we have 1 over 4 times 1/8. Which is so now the two spots we have left, the focus, the value we didn't find yet was our K plus P. Well, K is 2 and P is 2, so 2 plus 2 is 4. So the focus is the point 3, 4. Our directrix is given to us by the equation K minus P. So 2 minus 2, which is 2. Questions on this here? Do we like this better than finding the equation? Yeah, because this here, all we need to find was the value of P, and we have everything we need. We're ready for the next one. HKAP. So from the equation, we know that A is negative 1/4. It's the number in front of our parentheses. K is going to be 1, and that's going to be positive. What's A going to be? It is 2, but it would be positive or negative? Negative. Because our X plus 2 matches up with our X minus H. The only way we can go from a negative in the general form to a plus in our equation is if the value of H is negative. Now, before we move on to putting anything in to our general forms for vertex, focus, directrix, and axis of symmetry, it might be nice to just go on and find out what the value of A is, or P is. We know what A is. Now, our 1 over 4 times negative 1/4, 4 times negative 1/4 is negative 1. 1 divided by negative 1 is still negative 1. Now the vertex. And the general form is our point H comma K. Well, H is negative 2. K is 1. Focus is going to be our H comma K plus P. Well, the H value is still negative 2. K plus P we do need to calculate. is k plus p. K is 1. P is -1. And our 1 plus -1 would be 0. Directrix would be our y equals k minus p. And at this point here, we do need to calculate k minus p. And our k minus p would be 1 minus -1. But that negative and negative make a plus, telling us y is equal to 2. And lastly, our axis of symmetry. X is equal to h. And h in our case is -2. Questions on this here? Questions on anything we've done so far? I think we have time for at least one more. We ready for the next one? Yes? Now this one here, the starting equation is not y equals, it is x equals. So the general form for this is x equals a times y minus k squared plus h. Doesn't change what we have to do. We still have to find the values of h, k, p, and a. Now a for this one here is what? 1/16. What is the value of k? It is 3. Because k, y minus k is inside the parentheses. The k value is inside now, not outside. So we do need to be paying attention to that there. Since it is y minus 3, y minus k, k would be positive 3. And h would be positive 1. Now the last value we really need to find is the value of p. P is equal to 1 over 4a. So we plug our a value in. So we have 1 over 4 times 1 over 16, which is 4. Now, even though we have x equals, the vertex is still the point, h comma k. Our value of h is 1, k is 3. Focus would be h plus p comma k. We can go on and fill in the fact that k is 3. Now, h plus p would be 1 plus 4, which is 5. Directrix h minus p, 1 minus 4, which is -3. And lastly, axis of symmetry, x equals k. So y equals, not x equals, y equals Sorry. We will finish this 2